Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Alan Nathan Show. I'm Kathleen Antrim, sitting in for Alan, who will be back tomorrow. In the meantime, we are covering all the topics that are fit to discuss, and we've got Alfredo Ortiz, President and CEO of the Job Creators Network, on with us next. He has testified before legislative committees about the impact of regulation and taxation on small businesses. His work has been published in outlets such as USA Today, CNBC, and The Hill, where he's credited as an advisor to President Trump. Welcome, Alfredo.
Kathleen, how are you doing? Happy New Year to you. I think I can still say that up till now, right?
You can. We're only in the middle of January. I think the whole month of January we get to say that, right? And Happy New Year to you too. Yes, it's. I think it's going to be a great year. In the meantime, absolutely. We've been discussing Iran today and whether or not Iran was really knocked back on their heels and has to maybe sit back and take a hard look at how President Trump is handling things. And I think they got maybe a reality check when he took out Soleimani. I want to get your take on that. And I really want to talk also to you about, we have become much more energy independent. And, how does that really impact the relationship with Iran? But first, let's talk a little bit about whether or not you think that the Ayatollah and President Rouhani have had to kind of start to take another look at how they're going to handle the United States.
Boy, Kathleen, you this is so incredibly dead on correct, because what a difference a few decades make. Remember back in the 70s when we had the oil embargoes and the all that going on. I mean, remember the lines that were going on blocks and blocks and the shortages and stuff like that. Now fast forward to what happened. I mean, the price of oil, I think, went up maybe $1.50 maybe a barrel, and it's actually now below where it was when the actual crisis started.
Isn't that interesting?
Back down to like $58 a barrel, which is amazing. But that's what happens when we become energy independent. The need for Mideast oil, really, and really kind of that vital economic interest that it was back in the 70s, really is no longer. And really, what we experienced is there was no blip. There was nothing. There was concern, and I think you said it correctly in that I think Iran got a dose of reality here, because they realized, wow, it's not the 70s anymore, right?
Right.
They really don't need us, and I think, quite frankly, I think they were expecting a very, very different reaction. I mean, here in the United States, as there was literally basically no consumer really impacted in any way, shape, or form. And it's just really amazing to see that. And that really is, great. Last week, if you remember, the president, in his remarks, I think it was on Wednesday, one of the rallies, he said, we are independent and we do not need Middle East oil.
Right.
And boy, what a statement that is. And that really is great for all Americans across the board. And boy, we can rest easy now, because they can't hold that over our heads anymore.
I agree. I think that that really did change the calculus in dealing with this, terrorist regime, quite frankly. And in looking at what's coming down the pike, it's going to be interesting to see how Iran thrives or not with the economic sanctions, the fact that we don't need their oil, etc. And now with the protests there, I mean, and also we've got President Trump now, literally tweeting out in Farsi to support the freedom fighters in Iran and offering our support and letting them know that we're with them. How realistic is it that they might, in fact, overthrow this government?
Well, it's sad what actually happened there. The accidental shooting of the jetliner.
Awful.
Out there. I mean, just really, really heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. Heart goes out to, all those family members and all the affected loved ones. But, I think it was a wake-up call for all Iranians, too, because, they shot down their own kind as well in that jetliner, which is just awful.
Right,
and so
82 Iranians.
And so I think this idea of, this reign of terror that, really has been the hallmark of the Iranian government now, I think that's going to start really being questioned by the people there, the Iranians themselves, and you're seeing the protests. And so, look, I mean, we're seeing this all across. I mean, people are starting to, wake up and get these doses of reality. Think about the back last year, what was happening in Hong Kong. and the protest there, standing up to communism there, right? And so I think people are starting to understand and realize and see the difference. And, again, our hopes is that, peace ultimately, reigns everywhere. But, I think the Iranian government really got a dose of reality when they realized they can no longer hold the U.S. hostage, really, with oil.
One of the things that people aren't talking about with this Ukrainian jetliner that was shot down, and I want to give a little backstory. So I worked on Capitol Hill for a couple of years in the mid-2000s, and one of the things that you learn, I was behind the scenes in the Senate, is that oftentimes what we see in the media, and now with fake news, we're seeing this more and more, but what we see in the media and what we hear from governments, even our own, oftentimes it's not what they're telling us. And so when I look at this quote-unquote accidental shooting, and I think, was it accidental? Or who was on that manifest? And I'm hoping some people are starting to dig around to find out who was on the manifest, who was on that plane, because it seems just a little convenient that plane got taken down the way it did. And so you have to wonder if there wasn't more to it. Do you think I'm off base?
Well, out of my league for sure, but at least from what I'm understanding, or at least the folks that I'm talking to, it really did seem like it was accidental, which is really just even, it's horrible because if you think about it, that was basically, ineptitude, that really cost the lives of all those people in that jetliner. And, and the thing is, I think, again, it's this idea that terror, they can't rule, with terror. And they can't control us no longer with terror, and that we will fight back. And I think that was the obvious sign, and I think that's why Iran backed down as quickly as they did, and this crisis basically elevated and then de-escalated within literally a matter of a couple of days.
Right.
Which was great to see, and and again, but what's amazing, Kathleen, is that all of this independence, energy independence, and the oil, us as net exporters. Really, none of that could have been possible if it hadn't been for the revolution of fracking, which the Democrats and everyone on the left, basically says it's the worst thing ever, and it's going to ruin our world and all this stuff. Well, guess what? It actually, because of this energy independence that we had, it probably did prevent a war. And so
that's a very good point.
But they'll never talk about that, and which is so frustrating, because it really did prevent a war. Us being able to stand up and have that energy independence.
Yeah, it's so true. And they're never going to give Trump a win, especially one that big, right? So, it is what it is. And it's really unfortunate because I honestly think that sometimes they're trying to undermine America as a whole just so they can blame it on Trump. Alfredo Ortiz, President and CEO of the Job Creators Network, thank you so much for being with us. You're fantastic. We have to have you back.